My grandparents were... there's a long line of Kavanagh history in Tramore. Long line of Kavanagh history in Tramore. My grandfather was a guy called Gilbert Kavanagh, who was here way back early. I think my family started off here very as far back as we've gone, about 1800s, very long way back. My sister has done a little bit of family treeism, and she's seen all these things. But my grandfather Gilbert Kavanagh, he was in the war, First World War. He lost a leg, came back from the war, and actually worked as a coalman with a wooden leg. He actually worked. Now, I would have loved to meet him. He was gone before I was around, but I believe he was a bit of a character. You know, some would say you could call him a little bit of a fellow who loved a great bit of fun. Great bit of fun. Like, you know, I know for a fact that he liked his drink, and he got into some scrapes, but sure, look, that's all behind us, you know. My grandmother was named Molly O'Connor, originally from Rossgrey up in Tipperary, but he came to Tramore and lived down in Patrick Street in Tramore. A lot of the older people in Tramore actually were in Patrick Street, one of the oldest streets in Tramore, all came from that area. Lived there for a long time, then moved up to Peter Street alongside of the church, where she lived and raised, she had a huge family. There was my own dad, he had his brother Packy, Tommy, Hughie. She had 8 daughters, I think. So it was a huge family. And like lots of families around that time, things weren't so good in Ireland, obviously, around that time. And they, a lot of the girls, actually all of them bar one, moved over to England and worked. A lot of them became nurses. A lot of them became, they were working in housekeepers over in England. It's what they had to do, you know. Most of them stayed over there. I think all of them bar one stayed over. She went over a while, didn't feel it was her thing, came back and got married here in Ireland and lived out in Dunhill all of her life. God be merciful to her Betty. She's only died a year ago, a little bit over a year ago now. But, you know, the family has a long history in Tramore, very long history in Tramore. And my father then, he married a lady from Clonmel called Sayers, Lizzie Sayers. She was my mother. And my father was in the army. He was stationed in Youghal for a while. They lived in Youghal. And I think 2 of my brothers, Tommy and Gilbert, were born in Youghal. Then they moved on here to Tramore. And I was born here in Tramore with the rest of my family. And we were a very close family. Always very close family. And always well known around Tramore. My mother was I can remember when I was very young, she had some amazing jobs. She brought people into the world. She would be the wet nurse, or she would be the nurse that would be called when somebody was having a child and there wasn't a nurse around. They'd come down to Lizzie Kavanagh to get the nurse. She laid out the dead, and at Christmas times she plucked turkeys, killed them with her bare hands, wrung their necks, and that is a fact. That's what she used to do. And yet, behind all of that, I can remember so well that when we were very young, there used to be a few mice around. If a mouse ran into the room, she would jump up and she would scream and roar and shout. Yet, she could be there when a child was born. She could put a person into the death robes that they had and kill the turkeys. She choked her and like this. But that's what she used to do. And it was like Tramore, I think, was a place where a lot of the ladies around Tramore who weren't in business in Tramore, I think it was a place, what I can remember most about, that most of the married women around Tramore at that time, people like my mother and all that, they all had a little job outside. I mean, I remember as well, in her later years, she used to come down here onto the prom. And what she actually used to do was, she used to clean the toilets down there. 6 o'clock on a summer's morning. 7 days a week she'd be down there, herself and a woman called Aggie Fitzgerald, who's gone as well now too. They used to go down and clean those toilets at that hour of the morning and come up and go down again in the evenings about 7 o'clock to clean them up again, have them ready for the next morning, and then back then again. You know, it was an amazing thing. But I think that when you have a family so big and so kind of well known in Tramore, And with the amusements down here, a lot of families in Tramore got involved with the amusements, and our family was no different. My uncle Hughie worked for 50 odd years with Freddie Piper, Freddie the dad, down there on the prom in his place. I worked on Freddie's place. He used to have Pongo, and at that time the Pongo was like the bingo of today, but at that time the Pongo was, there was cards made out of plywood, and I remember we used to get the cards brought home to us. We'd bring them home and we'd paint them in the colours, the different colours, the yellow, the green, the white, the black and the red, different colours on them, square them off, put different numbers into them, and we'd make those cards, bring them down to Freddie when there were all hundreds and hundreds of them, and then we'd get slitters, and he had a little kind of like a pinball thing, but it used to go around like this with all holes and all numbers, and we'd get the slitters and walk around and throw the slitters in. Whatever number they went into, he'd call it out and the people would mark them down on there. And they used to mark them off with bottle caps, the top of bottles, the bottle top. That's what they used to mark them off. But these are all memories that I have from way, way back in the days in Tramore, in the early days at Tramore. And I think it was brilliant, brilliant.
And you went to primary school in
Primary school in Tramore, yes, in the CBS in Tramore, the famous CBS in Tramore. And
I believe it was a tough school.
It was a hard school, Christian Brothers. And look, there's no use saying it wasn't. It was a hard school, very, very hard school. Things happened there, and I'm sure many people have probably said things to you about things had happened there. Like it's hard. I find it very hard to, we'll say, put people down or anything. But there were some vicious men. I have to say it. There were some vicious men there. You know, there were some vicious men there, and they just hadn't got a clue about outside life whatsoever. I remember lads being, talk about punishment. I've seen guys. It never happened to me, luckily enough. It wasn't that I was one of the good guys or anything. I always said I just escaped, but it never happened to me. I think maybe the lads, maybe 10 years older than me at that, they were getting it hot and heavy. And I saw some of the lads getting the things done to them, beatings with leathers, canes, you know. I remember once in particular, and there was this Christian brother, and he came up to a friend of mine, and he was sitting alongside him, and he just come in, and his thing every morning was, did you bring in the sweets? Did you bring in the sweets? And he jumped, this guy that was alongside of me, he was a heavy guy. I don't like calling him fat, but he was a heavy guy. And he was kind of the butt of a lot of jokes. And this guy was coming in the mornings, and he would run straight over to him, jump on top of him like that, and I was alongside him, and just bang it. Where's the sweets? Where's the sweets? Where's the sweets? And I remember one day he just went to me, he said, I haven't got any, and he just done it and peeled the skin down off his nose, just like that. Never forget it. But these were things, unfortunately it's not nice to be saying, but they happened, you know. If it didn't happen, I wouldn't be saying it, but they did happen, you know. But having said all of that, school days, they are like that. I know they are like that. You can't have them always the way you want to have them. But I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the times around Tramore. One thing as well, of course, was that I would have been very, very much into playing soccer. Loved soccer. Absolutely loved soccer. I think from the time I was, 3 years of age and could run around, I always had a ball with me. Loved soccer. And I would have been watching out, like all those years ago, for the results coming over from England on the telly. We hadn't telly, it was radio. And I'd be waiting out for the results to come. And we all used to go out at break time and play a little bit of soccer. And we used to get murdered for it. No way, you can't play soccer. And then on a Wednesday afternoon, we used to have a Wednesday afternoon off because we used to go in on Saturday morning for art. So we get a Wednesday afternoon off. And every Wednesday afternoon we come down here, just down the road there now, to where all those apartments there, Piper's apartments are there. There was a field there. This is when the tide was in. There was a field there, obviously Piper's field. And we used to come down there and play soccer. And always there'd be a few of the guys on the watch out to see the brothers, because they'd come down for their walk. And they would be coming down next to, we'd get up the ball and all sit down. Ball was gone away, we'd sit down and chat away and all this. Because if we were seen playing soccer, we would pay for it the next day. Oh yes, we would. The band was that crazy in those days, and the Christian Brothers were crazy for the hurling, you know.
Just explain the band for people, because they don't know. Some people don't know.
Yeah, people probably don't realise it, but yeah, the band was that, especially with Christian Brothers, when you were in the Christian Brothers school, their game was Gaelic football, and around Tramore it was hurling. We had a brother in Tramore called Brother McGinty, very, very famous brother around here, very, very good hurling coach, brilliant man. But the ban was that if you were playing Gaelic, you did not play soccer. It was a foreign game, and that was it. And if you were found out to be playing soccer, you would be stopped from playing Gaelic. They wouldn't allow you to play for your school team. No way would you allow to play. And of course, all of us, well, me, I probably was a bit of a rebel anyway, so if somebody put that up in front of me, yeah, that's all more reasons for me to go and play soccer. But that was it, that was the ban. You could not play any, as they said, foreign game, you know. And but look, we all did it. And I remember guys getting given out in school, and actually guys being sent home the following day saying, oh no, we saw you down playing soccer, out you go, you know. And this was it.
Can you remember what shops in Tramore, when you were small, would you associate with you?
Yes, well, I think the first one that always pops into my head is O'Connor's up at the church, because as well as a shop, it was a bakery. And for anybody in Tramore who lived up around that way, the smell that used to come up from that shop at 5 o'clock in the morning when these guys would be up in there baking early in the morning, the smell was absolutely fantastic. Fresh bread, of course the blah was always there. Fresh bread, it was beautiful. And I remember waking up in the morning and getting up, and no matter what kind of a day it was, you'd open up the front door and you go out and have a look, and the smell of the bakery coming and go. That was a fabulous shop. All the O'Connor family lived and worked in that for years and years and years. Davy was a great man in Tramore. I remember having a small little bread van going around, delivering the bread. And again, another one who gave employment to some of the lads around the place working on the van with Davy, you know. I remember that Jim Goodwin's shop. Jim Goodwin had a shop where he was a milk delivery man. And I ended up actually working with Jim and his family a couple of years later. But Jim had a lovely shop down on Main Street. And again, we used to start early, 5 o'clock in the morning. And I can remember at that time there was iron crates for the milk. It wasn't the plastic crates. And the noise on Main Street in the morning at 5 o'clock, they used to bring the milk out from Snow Cream. And the bangs of the crates and just pulling them down. You know, it was all these things. Of course, John Lodge's up on the top, just below the church. That was a great shop too. They had a...
Oh, hang on a second. Well, I just stay here. No, you need me to...
I could
If you change the balance of it.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it there now. There's a better way of doing this.
You hold it. Here and hold it.
There's a better way of doing this.
Down the way, no? No good.
I think it's just that it's so long.
Maybe if it's...
Yeah.
Or maybe if you come in this way, maybe. Is that a better...
That way it's going on.
Yeah, there, someplace, yeah.
It does like this.
Just put your foot on it.
The way it went down slow motion was brilliant, though.
I was watching it dipping as well. It's kind of like, if that falls over, I can go over and fix it. I don't want to stop the interview just to fucking do a 1 inch adjustment.
You're in now.
It's in now, is it? Popping in a little bit, is it?
Yeah, just drop a tiny bit. Okay, you're out now.
Try to throw a weight on the... yeah. Save your knees, Kieran. Put that on it. Okay. There, that don't be going nowhere.
She'll be right, as the Aussie says.
Yeah, okay, so, well, keep going, you're at
Where were
Lodges.
we? Yeah, Lodges. There used to be... They had a machine in there as well that ground coffee. And I can remember again the smell of the coffee being... And I used to go in there as a little kid, I'd walk in just to get that smell of the coffee being ground. It was a gorgeous, beautiful smell. And then the farther on you went down the town, remember we had Fox's, who was a chemist in Tramore, down near the beach. And we also had Paddy Mullins, had a shop down, we'd say, opposite or just before the old Avondale bar. There was a shop there, Paddy Mullins. Another great character, fantastic character. He used to always go around in his brown shop coat, always there to be standing at the door, smoking his woodbine. I can remember him smoking his woodbine, and he'd be having the old chat with you. And his famous saying was, I always remember him saying, my father used to have a drink with him and used to play darts with him, and in the Avondale. And I remember my father saying to Paddy, anytime we'd see him, Paddy, how you doing? And his saying was always, sitting up and picking. That was Paddy's saying. How you doing, Paddy? I sure I'm sitting up and picking. And I used to say, what did that mean? And his father said, look, he's up and he's eating, so he's grand. That was his saying. But there were so many characters around that time, you know, all of those people. People like P.J. Murphy, he lived down below, down here in the caravans, down on the old, again, Piper's Field that was there. All of those girls lived in caravans. caravans absolutely beautifully done up. I can remember they had small amusements, not the big stuff, small stuff, but they were in that business as well. They were part of the Piper family. And I remember them, PJ was there, and his son Pat and John, they played soccer with me down through the years. But I remember PJ, a great, great character. And one of the girls, I think it was Alice, she was married to a guy, a Dubliner called Jimmy Fennell, a small little man, a real small, but he was one of those guys that he was a jack of all trades. He was a fantastic painter, not as an artist now, but as a painter. He painted up the caravans, painted the horses' heads, all the little brocade that you see around, painted all of that stuff, and he was a genius at it. But again, Jimmy, when he was in his 50s, I can remember him coming down onto the beach with us and playing football on that beach when he was in his 50s. Everybody was attracted to it. Like, if the tide was out, we spent, I'd say, all of our school days and into our youth down on that beach. I mean, I can remember going down there at about 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, meeting a few of the lads, calling to the guy who had the football, because again, it might sound strange in this day and age, we didn't have money for footballs. Footballs are not like they are today. But now, this was only a plastic ball, but a good heavy one that wouldn't blow away in the wind. But normally, maybe only one or two guys had the football. So you made sure that they were always friends with you. And you go there and you play with them. And we played all day long. We could be down on that beach from 10 o'clock in the morning playing football. Several times we'd break up, go out for a swim, come back in, play again. It might be 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening when I'd be getting home. Absolutely burned out, but happy.
You used to tour with summer, wasn't it?
Yes, actually my own club.
Was that later on?
That was way later on. Yeah, that was into the 70s.
Okay, so you'd be in your late 20s?
I was in my late 20s. I was after. I played soccer all my life for Tramore, no other club, only Tramore AFC, and Noel Hayes, Willie Quaid, all the greats, the people who founded the club, way back to Arthur O'Connor, Conk Morrissey, Andy O'Byrne, who was a town commissioner here for long, all involved in the soccer. The Fairy Brian, as we used to call him, all these guys from way back. I started soccer with Noel and Willie, and Noel, I can remember well, he used to bring us into Waterford at the time, and to me at that time, into Waterford was like going to Dublin or something, because none of us had the money to go in. We didn't bother going in there anyway, but we never had the money to go in on buses. But Noel used to bring us in, and he'd pay for maybe 15 of us to go in on a bus, a double-decker bus, like a CIE bus. We'd go down to it, get into the bus, go in and play Bowes, whoever you have to play in there, have our game and come back out here to Tramore. We thought we were travelling miles and miles to play soccer. But it was amazing because, as you were talking about the tournament, our club then started off the seven-a-side on the beach. And I remember starting off, and it was, we used to be down there, and again, like everything in Tramore, especially in the summertime, we were always weather dependent. And although I look back and I always seem to think there was never a bad summer. Obviously there was, but I think I remember sunshine all the time. But there was some bad nights, and we were down there, and we used to be in the cold, and there might be a handful of players down there and a handful of people watching. But it progressed from that to a massive tournament. This thing became certainly all over Ireland. People used to come from it. League of Ireland players came and played on it. Our own Peter Thomas, who played with Waterford. Jackie Morley played down there. A guy called Dick Jasanowiak, who's long gone from Waterford but married a Tramore girl, he played down there. Alfie Hale played on the beach. All of the guys, Johnny Matthews, all of these guys who were...
was it 5-a-side or 7-a-side?
It was 7-a-side. Okay. And I remember at the start we used to have 7-a-side, and what we used to do is there was only one pitch at the start, but it got so popular that we used to have to make... So it ended up with 4 pitches. But at the start we had these wooden frames made and a bit of a net up, flags around for it, and we might have 6 games on them one night. It'd be all on one pitch and we'd be waiting to get them over. And of course our eye would be out on the tide. And we had the flags out. Many a time I would have been out by the flag. As slow down, I see the tide coming another, and just walk in a bit with the flag in 2 yards and all the way up along the line to bring it in. Often we ended up with a little strip of about 20 yards. The fella still kicked a ball in it. But it came from a small thing into a huge thing. It became very popular. And I remember there was a great saying around, especially among the lads in Waterford. We used to go in and play them then in league matches inside in Waterford on pitches. And they'd say, go away, you're only a strand footballer. Couldn't put a pair of boots on us, we weren't that great. But it was wonderful, wonderful
It
times.
was all runners, wasn't it?
Runners. If you could afford them, you know. I remember I used to go on my bare feet, but I'd put a bit of stockings on me because the sand would cut your legs a lot. But I used to go on bare feet as often as I could, unless you met a rough guy, and then you wouldn't have your bare feet anymore.
I come here, you're talking about, you said, the poverty at the time.
Yes.
Whatever. But like, in Tramore now, there was a big middle class as well, wasn't there?
Huge.
It was kind of a middle class town, wasn't it?
Very much so. Very much so. It was like there was a division. I don't mean that in any bad way now. It's just you had the bottom of the town, you had the top of the town, and you had people in around the town centre, shopkeepers and all that. Fantastic. They're all great people in there, you know. But there was other people, like my own family, like lots more people who lived up on the very first estates that were built here in Tramore. I lived up in Marion Terrace, which was 1952. That was one of the big terraces here. And of course you had all the older part of Tramore, where all the houses were there, where all we call them the middle class. You had a lot of doctors, grocers, you had solicitors, all that kind of lived in that area. And then we were up in the higher part of the town. But invariably, we'd all meet up down around the beach. The beach was the place to meet.
And then because I suppose there was only one boys' school and one girls' school,
Yes.
it was all mixed.
It came mixed later on. It became mixed later on when...
No, I mean, I'm talking about the different classes mixed.
Oh yes, of course, yeah. That's where we would meet. It's where guys like myself and other lads who were from the council estates, we call them all that, we'd meet with all the other guys. Like, I mean, there was lots of families in Tramore, the O'Brien Morns, Hugh and his son Hugh and all, and Jane and all. We all met together, Lisa. I remember Hugh very, very well. Hugh was into his surfing even then in those days. Hugh was a magnificent lad, great, great lad. But we would mix with all those people. Michael Morrissey, the solicitor in Tramore, he was a famous name in Tramore then for all the years. They had O'Shea's before it became O'Shea's, with Morrissey's Hotel. It was fabulous, all of those. But that is exactly where we all met, and we all became one then. And to be fair about it, there was no class divide. There was never any, we have this, you have that. No, there was none of that. We were all, as we were all just young lads in school, and that was that. I suppose the main thing was that when it came to later on in the school years, when you're after doing the intercert or the leaving, a lot of those lads would invariably have gone to college. A lot of us lads didn't. We went out to work. We had to do, like a lot of people, like my father, before I went to England for a couple of years, did a bit of working over there. It was what I had to do. Just that was the way it was, like, you know. But yeah, there was definitely no class division. There was class there, but really no class division. No class division.
And just to go back to your childhood again, I mean, you talked about the beach and all that, but would you have gone to the pier at all?
Yes, the pier was a great spot for us, especially when the tide was in, because the beach, you had to walk out onto the beach where you get your depth. You walk out, where you're happy swimming. Over in the pier, tide is, you just jump off the wall, you're in. That's it. There's no coming back. You're down. You have your depth. It was like that. But what I loved most of all about the pier was that very rarely I would walk over to the pier, up across the Donerail down. My way of getting to the pier was down onto the beach, onto the rocks, and you walk all the way across the rocks over to where the pier is. And when the tide was coming in, there was several areas there where the tide would come out, and you would have to jump from one rock to another. Now, a fair little jump on it, but it was all part of it, like a big adventure, to jump over this rock, to get over, and it was fabulous, absolutely and there you would meet, I mean, the amount of people that would be on that pier, like all the guys, I think most of the guys who were there actually ended up being there were lifeguards. I remember David Kenny, all his family, they used to always be down there. The O'Brien Morns, again, they were always there, you know. All the Sullivans, all of those, Sullivans up in Duverne, up past the Cove, all of those, they were all down there. And we used to all meet. It was a great, great spot.
And was that the place where we said boys and girls met? And
yes, it's where the early courting days started. You'd meet them down around there. And again, it's a thing of where you'd meet in school, and then outside that, we'd go playing football, girls would go on, and then we go over there swimming, and then you would meet these girls, you know. And of course, you would meet an awful lot of holidaymakers who would come over there as well, and be over there, and you'd meet all. I remember when we were kids going to school, not telling any stories like that. He says, I'm telling everybody. But it was a place that you would meet girls, go off, and then we used to go down walking with them down into the sandburrs, the rabbit burrs. just for a walk now, just to see the beautiful scenery down there. And it was where lots of people met. And it was a great place. And a lot of those friends are still there today. Still meet them today.
So love stories begin down the Sandhills.
Love stories begin down the Sandhill. Sometimes you'd only get as far as the bunker. I don't think it's there anymore. There was an old hill called the Bunker, where there was a little pole. It was a pole standing up. We used to call it the totem pole. But it was a pole where they used to do these breachers buys years ago. They used to have the lads out and they'd be letting go of these rockets out onto ships, or so-called ships that were out there. And this totem pole was down there. And there was a bunker alongside of it. Sometimes you'd only make as far as the bunker. And you'd stay down there and you'd have a chat with the girl and see what was going on. But it's amazing the amount of people you'd meet coming up and you're going down and you wouldn't know where to hide. I hope I'm not bringing any bad memories back to people.
And to go back to, I'm sorry, when you got a bit older then, what about the dances? Did you get to the...
Yeah, for me it was the Silver Slipper. Silver Slipper now it used to be where the holiday shops are now. But for me it was the Silver Slipper. For lads, we said 10 years older than me, it was the Atlantic. But I do remember the Atlantic well because my father, having left the army, he used to work on the building sites after that, but he could look after himself. He was a bouncer. And for those who don't know what a bouncer is, he's a doorman. Bouncer, the old name, but he was a doorman. And he used to work in the Atlantic. And I remember, I was very young. I was only about 10 or 11. But Chubby Checker, Jim Reeves, these are names now who, like, a lot of people mightn't remember them, but legends, absolute legends. These guys came and they played down at Atlantic. And I remember I was lucky enough to see them for a few minutes because I used to go down with my father, and they had a little place. It was kind of a two-story place where you'd put bands. Well, there was always, they used to call it 3 sessions. There was a band would come on, we say from 9 o'clock until 11 o'clock. We say a local band, banging out a bit of music. Then from 11 until 1, there'd be a kind of a band that's a little bit better known. And then from 1 until 2, 3 maybe, would be the main band. At that time, of course, it was show bands as well. So there would be 3 sessions in the Atlantic. And the amount of people that went through there, the amount of well-known people at the time, huge stars that were there. But mine, as I say, was the Silver Slipper because I was more a rocker. And over in the Silver Slipper, we had bands like Rory Gallagher, we had Phil Lynott with Thin Lizzy, we had Horselips, you name them. Skid Row, they were all there. And I remember, it was a laugh with a lot of the lads for a while, but I remember when Rory Gallagher came there and he was playing, and to me now Rory Gallagher was one of the best guitarists I ever heard. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I was absolutely crazy about him. I remember standing in front of the stage and just looking at him in awe, how good he was. And there was a friend of mine from Cork, God be good to him, he died a couple of years back, Frank McGrath, Fla was his name. And Fla would have known Rory in his early days around Cork. And Fla was with me this night at this gig, and the dressing room in the Silver Slipper, if I said as small as a Jack's, I'd be like, it was tiny. I never forget, tiny little place. And Rory went in there afterwards, and Fla said to me, come on, and it was a little slide, and we went in the side and went in to see Rory. And Rory was in there with the sweat pumping out of him. And I was just there, and I wanted to say, and I couldn't set into him. So he just kept looking at me and he said, oh yeah, and a real Cork accent on him, And I eventually got the courage to have a chat with him, and he was a lovely, lovely guy. And he gave me 6 of his old guitar strings off of the guitar that he was playing that night. And I can still remember, years and years later, he still had that guitar. It was battered, but a beautiful, beautiful Fender. What a guitar. But he gave me 6 of the strings. I had them for years. I don't know what happened to him. And he wrote his name in biro across my chest. And I remember saying to the lads, I'm not going to swimming, or I'm not going to have a bat for a month because it would wear out. And I remember when it did start to wear out, you got one of the lads to try and copy it, but eventually it was gone. That was it. But that was the times we had in. And I remember, well, there's a man in Tramore who would remember this, Jim Toohey. He was the head of Port Fault at the time. And I remember Jim, I suppose we were the bane of Jim's life. We were little blackguards. As I was telling you earlier, we didn't have much money. So I remember there was a huge weekend down there with all the big bands there. And of course, we'd be around trying to get a few quid together to go to the bands. I think it was £1 to cover the 3 nights, that'll tell you. Fabulous. And we were there, and some of us had money, some of us didn't. And I remember we came upon a plan that we'll go and we'll see Phil Lynott. Now, none of us knew Phil Lynott, but Phil was such a, I'm sure you know yourself, such an extraordinary man. He was, if you walk down the street now, people would look at him. He was a big, tall man, a coloured man. At that time, you wouldn't see many of them. I say coloured now, a lot of people, black people say, call me black. You know, a black man walking around, and he was just outstanding looking character. And he was playing there on, I think it was a Saturday night, and we were sitting down around the amusements, as we used to do, listening to the music on the jukeboxes, around Dooley's and around Freddy's. And who came walking up the road there? Only Phil Lynott. And I said, look, I said, there's Phil Lynott. And I said, it is, look, I said, you couldn't mistake him, you know. So I remember going over to him, I said, to hell with it. And I said to him, Phil, any chance you'd get, as if I knew him all my life, any chance we could get into the gig tonight? And he said, I can never forget what he said to me. He said, Jesus, lads, he said, real dub. He said, Jesus, lads, he said, I don't get any tickets, he says, for anybody. He said, but he said, why don't you just do what we do up in Dublin? And I said, what's that? He said, how many of you are there? And I said, there could be 12 or 13. Well, he said, get the 12 or 13 of you and run at the bleeding door, he said. He said, burst in, he said. He said, 5, 6, 7, 8 you'll get caught, he said, but a couple of you are going to get in. He said, and then when you're in, he said, so believe it or believe it not, Jim, Chewy probably remembers this, there was a burst made for the door, 4 lads got in, the rest got caught, and made their way to the little side entrance, and little flick on the door opened up and we were all in. And that's, I could get jail for this now. It's many, many years after the event. Yeah, is the statue run out on it yet? But yeah, that happens, you know, that happened down there. But those were the days. That was the time that we had around Tramore then. Like, you know, it was fabulous time.
And just to go back, way back to when you were small, I mean, what other older people can you remember at that time that were around town that you kind of saying,
yeah,
God, those people?
Yeah, I tell you now, I think at that time we had characters, I mean real characters, the likes of we will never ever see again, definitely. We had an old guy called Limerick Bill, you may have heard of him in your travels. He lived up in what we called the 24. They were called poor houses, small little cottages that were up opposite the convent up in Tramore on Convent Hill. And there were 24 small little houses for older people and for people who didn't have anything. Limerick Bill was a guy who lived up there. I remember you'd be passing his house, the smoke that used to be pouring out of his house was unreal. And he used to sit in by the fire all the time, and he was black with chimney smoke.
Oh, would he cook on the fire?
Anything he had to do, he'd do by the fire. Kettle on everything was there. And he had badges. I remember there was a ploughing championships came to Tramore. Can't remember what year now, but there was a ploughing championships down where the Gaelic pitch is down there now. And all these badges, like tractor badges and all these things, and Shell Oil, all these things. And Limerick Bill used to get all these badges and put them all over him. He had them all over, all these badges. And he used to be in there and that house. Oh, there was so many characters like him. There was Frank Marr, who lived down in Little Market Street. Another character, a great, we used to call him the General. A great character. He loved to go in and have his pint, have his bottle, as he used to say, a buckle. He used to have his bottle in there, Frank had been there, and he just loved sitting down talking to the people. You know, there were so many characters around at that time. There were so many of them. When you go into people like, there was a nun in Tramore, Sister Catherine, again, a famous nun in Tramore. She's a nun, one of these persons who she was always old to me. You know, she was always an old person, but she went on for ages and ages. She did an awful lot for the people in Tramore, down on those very, very early days, you know. And there was so many people like that around.
You mentioned the connection with the war to your grandfather.
Yes.
But would there be many old soldiers around that time when you were a child?
Yes, there were a lot of the people, the older people around there, would have fought in the World War. Of course, we had a very famous man here in Tramore, Nicky Whittle, you know, who was involved with the IRA in his time. And fought down on Pickerstown, at the Pickerstown ambush down there. He was down there, got shot several times and crawled miles, survived and died a good couple of years back now, but a real one of the old stock in Tramore, and a very, very well respected man in Tramore, you know, where those days, like...
And there was no problem between him and, we say, people that...
No, but...
had lived and worked in
exactly. That's funny that you should say that now, because there was an uncle of mine on my mother's side who was in the British Army. His name was Richie. He was in the British Army, and he was born and raised in Clonmel. But when Richie went over and joined the English Army, done his stuff, done his stint, and he would never come back to Ireland. Or if he did, he'd always come back and he'd say to us, don't anyone... I can remember my mother saying, no, my Uncle Richie might come... He'd say to us, your Uncle Richie could be coming down to see you now, but don't tell anyone where he's from or what he did. It was just kind of... Especially if you were in the British Army. Oh, don't say anything about that. Don't say anything about that. People were kind of afraid in case they get the connection, people in the IRA or people in the know might come and say, hey, there's a guy back. You know, and when you think about it, that's not so long ago. You know, it's amazing.
Changed so fast.
Yes, it is, you know. But then again, that's the way of the world, isn't it, you know? It's the way of the world. But yeah, there was lots of people around like that, lots of ex-soldiers.
And the other big thing in Tramore, obviously, was the race week.
Yes.
What's your early memories of that?
Well, I tell you, my abiding memory of the race week was that, first of all, about a week before, the smell of new cut grass. The smell of grass coming out from it. They used to always cut it about a week before racing. The smell of the grass, it was fabulous. And then when the race, of course, came, the smell of the grass with the fish and chips that used to be sold there, it was something that I always connected with Tramore and with the races. Also, of course, as we were talking about earlier on, we didn't have that much money, but our way of going into Tramore was over the sheeting. Anybody who of my age or who knows me or who were with me, they would check over the sheeting, and the sheeting was the tin was all around. Didn't have that many walls at the time. It's all sheeting around it, and you'd kind of pull up the end of the sheet and prise open a little hole where you could slip in. Now this would bring you to the outside of the course, but at that time the outside was open, so you'd be running up over to it, and of course everybody could see you coming in, but you thought you were sneaking in. But it was up for a fellow who wouldn't have money.
Certain places everyone went.
Oh yes, yeah. And then after a while, of course, the racecourse staff would get wise to you, and they would put on these places. So every day, then you had to get a different place to get in, and you would see people come up from maybe 20 different directions, honing in to the middle, and all getting in for nothing. But it was it used to be so. But it was a great time. It was a great time.
Would you want to go in from the point of view of, because that's where the crack was?
Yes, that's where the fun was. To this day, I still back horses. I haven't lost the knack. Still haven't found out how to back winners. But yeah, I remember it'd be, if we could have it, sixpence to put on a horse, like, you know. But I was always interested in racing anyway. But then again, at that time you had Pat Taff, you had Johnny Rowe on the flat, you had Johnny Rafferty, you had Toss Taff. You had Ted Walsh, who was an amateur then, Mr. Ted Walsh. You had Alan Livingston. All these famous names from the world of racing. And they were there. But I just remember, and we used to go around, there'd be, obviously a few people would get drunk during the day down there. Not us now, a few of the older people. And people would lose tickets, and there were these little yellow tickets that they were printed. If you backed on the toad, you got a little yellow ticket that was printed out with the horse and everything, and they'd lose them. And we'd be going around picking up all the discarded tickets, looking, and many a time we'd pick up one and it'd be, and you hand it in, and you get money off it. People would just maybe make a mistake and throw one away, or they were drunk and they'd lose their other power. But we'd be going around. I used to come home with pockets fulls of these tickets and have the results with me and check them all against the results. And we made a few quid, an odd time. But those were things that you did.
Very enterprising.
Oh yes, of course.
And then there was always bar extensions with the races.
That's right, yeah. You always had, the race week was the week when it was like the farmers gathering the hay. You made the money, the race week. And the bar extensions were there. I mean, it'd be 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning and people would come out of it. You know, it was fabulous. It was a fabulous time for business in the town. Also, as well as that, the amusements down there, they had, like Freddy's, as I was telling you earlier on, my Uncle Hughie, who worked with Freddie, Hughie worked on a roulette wheel. And that roulette wheel, when I was only a young kid, but I can remember seeing pound notes going down on that. And a pound note at that time was huge money. Huge money. Pound notes going down on that, and fellas reeling them off putting them on pound on black, even money, pound on red, even money. You could pick a number, crazy. And as Fred, I remember as Freddie, the owner, all used to always say, the table never loses. And it doesn't, It's not that they were fixed, right, but you just can't win against these things, But the money that was spent down there, huge money. But the whole town used to come alive for that. Absolutely alive for that time. And it's when the money was made. And because in the winter time, at that stage, they weren't opening. They didn't have openings down there. The amusements closed at a certain time, and they were finished up for the season. I remember my uncle, when he worked with Freddie at this time, it was canvas tents they had. That'll tell you how long ago it was. Canvas tents, and they used to bring several, take them all down and bring them off, and they used to move on to, I think it was Listowel. There was, when Tramore season would finish, down to Listowel and down to Tralee. Travel with this gear, set them up and work down there. That was the way it was. That was the way it was.
And when you got to an age where you started to go to pubs, tell us about the pubs in Tramore, because obviously it's a smaller number of pubs.
Yes, yeah.
But yet there were some great characters and great.
There was great pubs. Right from the very start, up at the top, O'Neill's was a fantastic pub. And again, it's like, I suppose these days they have the same. O'Neill's was a Gaelic pub, you'd call it. All the lads who loved the Gaelic went into O'Neill's. Watch All Ireland's and all that stuff up there. Connolly's was a fantastic pub in Tramore. It's O'Neill's own it now themselves. It's the old Forge now, but it used to be George Connolly's, a very, very well-known man in Tramore. And all the guys from Waterford used to come out every Saturday night to watch Match of the Day. Because at that time, George, he was one of the only people around who had the English channels. But at that, obviously terrestrial, he had his aerial up, but he could get it in some way good. But often it was like watching a match in a snowstorm. The reception used to be that good. And of course there wasn't colour television. But it was great down there. And of course then, for us younger people, down into the Vic as it was back in the day, I can say without contradiction that it was the best pub I was ever in. That's not just because I'm from Tramore and it was in my time. I've been in pubs all over the place. Nothing has ever compared to the Vic. This is the old Vic when Pauline Hendry had it. Pauline, her son, Mick and Joe, they worked there. Pauline's husband Frank, who died, and I can barely remember Frank, a little bit of him. He died, and Pauline was there with her sons running that pub, and my God, what a pub. Pauline is history on her own. She really is. Pauline, to explain her to you, she always wore the old apron. She had jet black hair. Her hair was jet black. Always had the apron. Always had a cigarette in her mouth. The fag ash hanging down of her mouth. Even when she'd be pulling the point, that fag was there. It was just part and part of Pauline. And Pauline ran that for years and years as a guest house and a pub. And then her sons Mick and Joe took it over one summer just to kind of give it a try out. Pauline, of course, would never be out of it. She'd always be behind the bar. And the lads started bringing music in, and Pauline would just go, Jesus, that music. By the time the first year was gone, the first summer we had, Pauline was there and she'd sing the songs with you. I remember singing Jackson Browne, Stay. Oh, won't you stay just a little bit longer? Here was Pauline, she's singing that with the fang. She was a great lady. And then that pub really took off. I remember it kind of, the word went around that the Vic was the place to be. And Joe and Mick and all the lads, my own brother Noel worked there for a long, long time as barman. I'd done a little bit of barman myself there, but I wasn't that good at it because I was more interested in being on the other side of the bar. But the fun we used to have in there. And when I went in there first, I'd say I was only about 16, and I used to wait until there was an older man going in, because it was a big, long, narrow pub, and into a small little room at the back. That's all it was. And when the older man would walk in, I'd be kind of in at the side of him and down into the back room. And somebody older would get me a small bottle of Guinness or something. And I'd be in the corner drinking this bottle of Guinness, and I thought it was great. And then it came to time that I could go in there legally, and I didn't leave it for about 20 odd years or something. It was fabulous.
This was before Jeff's and all that.
Way, way before Jeff's. I don't care what anybody else says. The Vic was the forerunner to all of these pubs that are around now. All of these pubs. Like Jeff's. Jeff's a beautiful pub. Gorgeous pub, you know. But the Vic was the place. I remember Joe putting up, I think it was a Canadian dollar bill that he had got from visitors who had got to hear about the pub. And we used to be up there, and there was very little posters or anything like that on the wall. So Joe and Mick said, yeah, we put up posters, music posters, where we started putting these up. And Joe got a Canadian dollar bill of somebody and stuck it up on the ceiling. That started a fad. Anybody who come in then, no matter where you're from, it ended up, there was thousands of pounds up on thousands of pounds, dollars, whatever, up on the ceilings of it. But there was all money from all over the world. We put up on the second year, I think it was, that we were involved. I was working there with Joe and the lads. We put up Christmas decorations up in the place for the Christmas, make it sparkle and all this thing. They were up there till the day it closed. Never took them down. Never took them down. And the characters that were in there, Paul Maher, small, he's dead now, poor Paul. A character, a small little man. His family, all the Mahers in Tramore, well known in Tramore. They used to, great men to have a point, great men to sing the opera songs. And they'd be singing opera. And they'd start singing. One of them would thought that Geely was the best singer that he ever heard. The other fella, no, it was Caruso. And there'd be a little row about who was the best and all this. But again, these were the characters that were there. But it was fabulous, absolutely fabulous times, you know.
And I suppose, you mentioned about immigration and all that kind of, but people did go off travelling and go off working and all that kind of stuff. So there was a lot of people coming and going, wasn't it?
Yes, there was. I think the majority of us around my age now, I'm 66 now, so there was a lot of people around my age who would have gone away, did what we would do, but always came back. I found it, to this day, like I've always said, I would never have stayed away. I'd always come back to Tramore. But I had to go, of course I did. I had to go, I had to work. And now at that time there was a lot more work than there is now. You could get out of one job one day and go into another. But to earn serious money, we used to go across to England, work on building sites, nothing more than that. Work on building sites, send back a few quid to the mother every Friday in the post. I remember going to Hereford to work making cider in the Bulmer cider factory over in Hereford. It was the craziest time ever. It was a seasonal job. We went in September and I came back on Christmas Eve. And it was for just around, we say, 3 months. But we earned at that time lots and lots of money. But it was crazy. We used to do, because we were there on seasonal work, we wanted to try and make as much money as we could for when we were coming home. And we used to work 7 days a week, 12-hour shifts. We'd work from 6 o'clock in the morning until 6 at night. We'd come off of that shift one week and go straight on to 6 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock in the morning. And we were solid for the 3 months that we were there, just to earn enough money so that when you came home, you had plenty of money. And we did. We had loads and loads of money. And of course, we blew it in a week. And all of a sudden, why did we come back? Why? We always came back and more. But there was loads of fellas like that. Loads of fellas like that, who went away, did what they had to do. But I've always seen them back here. And they all say the same, look, you know, God be with the days back in Tramore when we were doing such and such, you know.
And just to finish up, I mean, your way Tramore has changed a lot.
Yes.
It's much bigger now than it was and all that kind of stuff. I mean, do you still kind of get a sense of Tramore yourself, like, or do you think it's changed too much? Or
No, obviously it has changed an awful lot. It really has. But I think Tramore, the majority of people I know, I've known them all my life. Of course, we're getting on. Things are happening. The world is getting on. The world never stands still for anybody. Whatever happens, we've got to go with it, you know. It is changing. But no, I think that's still, the camaraderie that was there in Tramore is still there. I mean, if I could give you an example, the soccer club down in Tramore, which I'm involved in all my life, it's a fantastic place down there. Absolutely. We have kids from 6 years of age right up to senior teams playing. You know, any day you go down there, there's always somebody playing. There's always somebody. There's Tramore people are the heart and soul of that club. Without them, the club wouldn't be there. We have a fabulous stand down there, a new stand that we got built. To be fair, all done by the people of Tramore. All out looking for donations, we brought up a thing where you could buy a seat in the stand to help us get through it, you know. The seat was €250. You buy a seat and the seat was yours. You know, I've bought one myself. That seats, I think that there might be only about 20 left. You know, and that's 200 seats. And this is all, it's a great, great community. And I think what has actually paid off in the long, long run is now, believe it or believe it not, last year we won the under-17 FAI Cup of Ireland, not the local, or the FAI Cup of Ireland. And this year, that same team went on into the under-18 Cup of Ireland and won the under-18 Cup of Ireland, which will never be done again in my lifetime by the one club. Same team, 1 year after the other. Fabulous. And now, the probably sad part about it is that team now, they're mostly all over age. They're gone out of youth football. That team will probably break up because those lads are going to go to work, they're going to go to college, those lads are going to break up and go their separate ways. But they brought that wonderful bit of history to more.
Well, maybe some of them might end up playing for Ireland.
Maybe, look, it's not beyond the realms of thought because, again, I'm talking about the soccer club, but it's what I'm involved in. Jim Goodwin played with our soccer club, then all his family played with us. Jim, boss over in Alloa Athletic now over in Scotland, played for Ireland, went over to England, same time as John O'Shea, played together with John O'Shea on the under-16 team, under-18 team, under-21s, got his senior cap. Now he's like in the management side of it. I think he's only 37 or 38 years of age, but here he is, a Tramore lad. This John Frost, who plays Waterford United, he's still here in Tramore, up in Rangers, playing soccer with Rangers, and a great influence inside. Alan Reynolds, the boss of Tramore lad, all of these lads. Who else had we? We had Derek Williams, playing with Blackburn Rovers, who's got promotion this year into the Championship. Tramore lad, signed from Tramore. You know, it's fabulous. There was so many more of them. Down through the years, there was so many more footballers around. And that's how it's all given back. You know, it's lovely. It's absolutely brilliant.
But also a great way of integrating people as well.
Of course it is. Of course, and I think mostly of all, like things like music, sport, art, all these things, they have great, great followings. And I find that there's an awful lot of people are involved in all of them, in a little way. You know, some people are more involved in other things, but a lot of people, they get involved and they meet people, they chat with people, and say, oh yeah, you're involved with the art, or you're involved with the soccer, and you meet each other, and you can. And again, you start talking, and just like we're doing now, all of a sudden you go, oh yeah, I remember his grandfather played with, and it goes way, way back again to all. And I'm sure it's the same with the Gaelic. You know, lads who play with Tramore and play with, it's the exact same, but I can only speak from the soccer side of it. But you know, it's a huge thing. And sport, music, the beach, the jukeboxes, all these things, all part and parcel of Tramore, the race course, all part and parcel of Tramore, and always will be. And of course our famous metal man here behind me. Always. You know, I mean, it's absolutely fabulous. I think sometimes when you look around and see what's there, it's beautiful here. See, here we are today, on a beautiful summer's day, looking around. The place is absolutely gorgeous. Where I'm standing right now on an on-rail, a couple of weeks ago, there was moguls here for snow. You didn't have to put that in. The humps were there. The snow was all the way down. You know, it was here. But today you come out and you look at it and you see what a beautiful day it is. And yet I can come around here any day, like middle of winter, walk up along that prom, even in the coldest, wettest of days, and say, you can't beat it. You can't beat it.
Geno, thanks very much.
Not at all, not at all. Thank you. Good stuff, lads.
That's great.
Good stuff.